Let us send peace and blessings to the Prophet and his family. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Let us begin with recitation of the Holy Quran. Another beautiful recitation, I should say, by Brother Muhammad Baqir. Please let's welcome him with salawat.
عطروا أفواهكم بذكر الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. إن الذين كفروا سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة ولهم عذاب عظيم. ومن الناس من يقول آمنا بالله وباليوم الآخر وما هم بمؤمنين يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون. في قلوبهم مرض فزادهم الله مرضا ولهم عذاب أليم بما كانوا يكذبون. وإذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون. ألا إنهم هم المفسدون ولكن لا يشعرون. وإذا قيل لهم آمنوا كما آمن الناس قالوا أنؤمن كما آمن السفهاء. ألا إنهم هم السفهاء ولكن لا يعلمون. وإذا لقوا الذين آمنوا قالوا آمنا وإذا خلوا إلى شياطينهم قالوا إنا معكم إنما نحن مستهزئون. الله يستهزئ بهم ويمدهم في طغيانهم يعمهون. أولئك الذين اشتروا الضلالة بالهدى فما ربحت تجارتهم وما كانوا مهتدين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
MashaAllah, ahsant. Indeed, Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their wealth in exchange for paradise. They fight in the cause of Allah, so they kill and are killed. It is a true promise upon him. Surah Al-Tawbah. On the burning sands of Karbala, a warrior stood, not for victory, not for spoils, not for revenge, but because his soul already belonged to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ink of this verse was written in blood that day, and Abbas did not wait for paradise. He marched to it, with no hands to knock on its gates. He didn't fight for water, he resisted it. He didn't fight for life, he gave it willingly. When the Quran says Allah has purchased the souls of the believers, it is not poetry. It is a contract signed in the heart of Abbas long before his sword was ever raised. In the end, he stood as a soldier, but also as a mirror to the verse. A man who was killed, but who was never defeated. And now we will begin with the English lecture and Majlis by Sheikh Shafeeq Huda. Please, your loudest salawat to welcome him up. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad.
ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين خالق السماوات والأرض إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين ورحمة الله على محبيهم ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقاتليهم وغاصب حقوق حقهم ومنكر فضائلهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتبارك في كتابه الحكيم وفرقانه المجيد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. صلوات upon محمد وعلى محمد. My respected sisters and brothers, my youngsters, my elders, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعظم الله وجورنا ووجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين عليه السلام. As we have done over these nights, we take the beginning part to extend condolences to Imam Sahib al-Amr, Ajjalallahu ta'ala dhuhur sharif, to the Holy Prophet, to the family of the Holy Prophet, on these days leading to the Shahadat of Abu Abdullah. Over these nights that we've been having our discussion, we have looked at the lives of some of the Anbiya who are mentioned in Ziyarat al-Waritha, because I had mentioned that our overall subject, the theme for this Ashura will be Ziyarat al-Waritha. Some of the lessons that we learn from Ziyarat al-Waritha through the Anbiya that are mentioned in the Ziyarah. And the personalities who are mentioned that will be coming as well, inshaAllah, bi'idhnillah. And so as we are looking at these days and these lives, and we're looking at what lessons we get from this University of Husayniyya alayhi salam, this academic forum, a place of gathering whereby the believers rededicate themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These discussions are meant to enlighten us on the laws of Allah, on the pleasure of Allah, and how we can basically obtain that pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we look at how yesterday we took a look at Hazrat Ibrahim's life, Nabi Allah Ibrahim, who was known as Khalilullah, the friend of Allah, who was known to have that proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why we say, Assalamu alayka ya waritha Ibrahim Khalilullah. That peace be upon you, O successor of Ibrahim, who was the friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We oversaw a few of the qualities that we are told and encouraged to have as far as what to look for in a friend and what to avoid in friendships. And so today, as we move forward in our subject matter, we look at how the next verse or the next line of the ziyarah unfolds, whereby we are taught to salute the Imam, to send salutations on the Imam. Assalamu alayka ya waritha Musa kalimullah. Salutations upon you, peace be upon you, O inheritor of Moses, the one who spoke with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who was the one that had a conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who used to converse with the Kalimullah, the one who used to have conversations with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine for a moment what a maqam, what a station that was, whereby the Prophet is called the one who speaks with Allah, who spoke with Allah, who has this conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What an honor. What a sharaf it was. And as we are unfolding this topic, as we are discussing these matters, and we are seeing how the message of Islam becomes embodied, and a reminder by Abu Abdullah, a message that I had mentioned on the very first night is not a new message. It is a continuation of the message that every Anbiya, every Nabi, every Prophet, from Adam to Khatam alayhimus salam, peace be upon them, brought. Not a new message. It was not something that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just sent out of the blue. That's why when people say that, oh, why did God send so many messages? Why did God send so many religions? That's some of the discussions that take place in the religious circles, whereby people are saying, well, you know what? Was God trying to confuse us? And it's almost, na'udhu billah, God forbid, as if there's a group who are trying to say that God intentionally or deliberately wants to confuse us. By putting so many religions, by putting so many paths, na'udhu billah, God forbid, He wants to confuse us and not give us anyone. And then we've got people on the other side of the spectrum. They say all of them are correct. All of the religions are correct. You take any religion, you will get to God, you'll go to paradise. Now you can imagine that if that was the case, and I was to say that it's nighttime right now, you will think that maybe I've lost it. You can say that, Brother Shafeeq, it's evening, late afternoon, but you can't say it's night. It's bright outside. It is a clear day. So you cannot say that it's night and dark at the same time. It is bright and dark at the same time. You have to make a decision, you have to take a statement, you have to take a stand. Either it is night or it is day. Khalas. There's nothing else that you can say in between. Yeah, okay, it might be, towards night or towards darkness or towards brightness or what have you. But you have to make sure that you understand that there is one way. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. That it is very clear what is the right path and what is the wrong path. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in another verse mentions, Inna hadaynahu sabila imma shakirum wa imma kafura. We have guided you, we have sent you the way, we have shown you the ways. Whether you give thanks and you accept it, or you be a disbeliever and reject it. You be ungrateful and reject it. I had mentioned yesterday night that kufr means basically ungratefulness. It's not a swear word, it's not a bad word. It just means somebody who's unthankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A kafir is somebody who is not grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A mu'min or Muslim is somebody who has submitted and basically acknowledged Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the way that Allah ta'ala has shown us the path and shown us the way. Now when I look at my respected university and college students here, a lot of times you may engage into conversations and discussions. I don't like to call them debates. Debates has more of an aggressive connotation to it. You have discussions. You might have maybe religious or spiritual discussions, because one of the things that we see, taking place more so in this last generation than before, is people who say, I'm not religious, I'm a spiritualist. I am spiritual. And this is what has been a trend nowadays. I'm not religious, but yeah, because religiosity has almost a negative connotation. When you say you're religious, people say, oh, you're way back from the old days. You haven't kept up with the times. But if you tell somebody you're spiritual, oh wow, that's it. So when you have these discussions, or you're engaging yourself in these interesting discussions, if somebody was to ask you, if a non-Muslim comes to you, my dear youngsters, university, college students in high school or about to be in high school, and they ask you, what is Islam? What is Islam? I want a nutshell. I want the condensed version. I want the shortcut version. Everybody wants shortcuts nowadays, right? Even, when people want to do their salat, they want the salat in shortcut. Salatul Ayat, there's a shortcut to do it. Salatul Jummah, there's a shortcut. Everybody wants a shortcut. The only thing is that my lecture, you have to listen to me until 7:30. There's no shortcut there. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. I tried to go to 7:40, but then the other sheikh will be upset with me because I'm eating up into his time. But anyways, so everybody wants a shortcut. Everybody wants to, let's go fast, let's go fast, let's go fast. We want, the only time we don't want to go fast is when we're having, when we're watching a movie, when we're having some entertaining time. At that time, everyone says, oh, I wish time would stand still. Huh? Naturally, I'm probably one of those as well. So if somebody asked you, what is Islam in a nutshell, in a very... Most of us, or many of us would say, oh, it's the belief in one God, the belief in the truth, the belief in, they remember that al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinukum, it is the perfection, it is this. And so basically they say that Islam is the religion of truth, Islam is accepting the truth. That would be a fairly common answer from many of you, say, inshallah, bi-idhnillah. Now what if I came here and I told you I'm going to disagree with that? So you'll look at me as if, a rock hit us, right? What's he talking about? What do you mean Islam is not the religion of accepting the truth? Well, let's move back one step. Just hold that thought, Control S. Just keep the thought in your mind. Islam tells you to accept the truth a little later. بعدين, inshallah. ولكن أول ما هذا. At the beginning, Islam is something else. Now this is where the shocking part comes about. Islam, first and foremost, is the rejection of batil and then the acceptance of truth. Or let me say it in a much simpler way. Islam is the religion that is the rejection of batil, of falsehood, and then automatically the truth will be accepted. Salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Now I'm sure you want some dalil, some explanation, some defense of that, because one of the things we are taught in the Hawza, in the academies of Islamic learning, is that you cannot make a statement without having evidence, dalil, without having some sort of proof. Obviously, I can't just say something and then say, okay, ma'asalam, I'm out of here. No, wait a minute. Give us the proof, Mr. Shafeeq. Give us some sort of an idea. Where did you come up with this? How did you come? Well, let us look at the very first beginning or the entry point of Islam. If somebody from Ghairul Islam wants to come into Islam, what do they have to say? Ashhadu an. The first word of the ashhadu after that is what? La. Wait a minute. Sociologists, early childhood educators, ECE teachers, and educators, and Montessori heads will explain to you that if you want to get a job done with a child, if you want to get something done, give them some incentive, give them something positive. Make sure you give them some enticement, the carrot and the carrot and the stick trick, huh? Okay? Give them something good and then they'll do what you want them to do. It happens with my kids all the time. It happens, I'm sure, with all of your children, those of you who are parents. And so here we see something completely contradictory from what modern psychologists or sociologists are telling us. The very beginning of Islam starts with a la. La ilaha illallah. There is no God except Allah. Again, what we were talking about yesterday in the discussion, that the Prophet broke those idols in the Kaaba after 21 years, not at the beginning. And the reason was that there are things in the heart that need to be cleansed, and then the acceptance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes evident. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, because there is the Hadith al-Qudsi that mentions that Allah Jalla Jalalahu will not enter the heart in which there is another ilah. If I have ananiya, I am me, I am superior, I am something, I've got that in my heart, Allah says, I don't want to enter that heart. I'm not going to enter that heart. So Islam is saying, La ilaha, get all these ilahs out, get all of these loves out, get all of these superiorities out, get all of these ilahs out. Then you say, Illallah. Then you ask Allah Ta'ala to enter. And if you want to understand another dalil, another evidence of that, A monumental book was written by Shaheed Dastaghaib Shirazi. Dastaghaib was a great alim who was killed just after the revolution. He wrote a number of books, Qalb al-Salim. He wrote a numerous amount of books. He's buried in the city of Shiraz. One of his most beautiful books, at least the one that I find useful and very beautiful, all of them were amazing books. One is called Greater Sins. It's been translated into Arabic, into English, into Urdu, and a number of languages. Greater Sins, Gunahani Kabira is the title of the book in Farsi. In the book Gunahani Kabira, Greater Sins, Shaheed mentions, the martyred scholar Dastaghaib mentions, that it is better to refrain from haram than to do good deeds. It is more important to refrain from haram than to do good deeds. So if you're faced with a challenge, if you're faced with an opportunity whereby you can do a good deed but something might transgress, or you do a bad deed or refrain from a bad deed, Shaheed mentions that it is better to refrain from that bad deed. Let me give you another example. There was a time when people used to say, just after the revolution in the Islamic Republic, before that there was no wall. Men and women would be able to do the tawaf of Imam Rada, Hazrat Ma'asuma all together. And so when the revolution took place and Imam Khomeini, Allah Makam's government came in, one of the first things that was done was to put a partition, ladies on that side, gents on this side. So some of the people were actually complaining, were implying that, oh, look at this, we can't do the tawaf. It is mustahab to do the tawaf of the entire Zari. And now we can't do that after this so-called revolution, after the Islamic revolution. And the answer that the mujtahideen and the ulama gave at that time was, yes, doing tawaf is mustahab. But in the process of doing that sunnah, of doing that mustahab, men and women were bumping into each other, touching each other, and having that closeness or proximity with each other. In order to avoid that haram, the mustahab was alleviated, was removed. So you can see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's laws give us a very clear direction on how to proceed. That is why those of you who know the fiqh in the Sharia, there is an interesting part that is a responsibility of a wali, of a parent. You know, sometimes parents want to do the best for their children. They want to do, whatever they can for their child. And they try their best. They try to, give them the treats that they want, give them whatever they want. We were talking about the carrot and the stick earlier, right? And so the philosophers of the Islamic Sharia, of the Islamic ideology, of the actual Islamic mentality, have said that for the wali, especially when a child is young and the child is developmental years, in those developmental, we try to encourage our young children, a 5-6-year-old, do salat with me, do prayers with me, maybe make him fast for a couple of hours, make her fast for a couple of hours. And they try to do all these good things and all that. And then it happened, it's happened in our community so many times. A parent will come to me, Sheikh, there was a problem. I said, what was the problem? My son went to a birthday party at his so-and-so, John's house, and by mistake he ate a bite of hamburger, or he ate a bite of a hot dog. Haram, obviously. He went to John's house and he did this haram. But he's not even baligh yet. He's only 5 years old, 6 years old. And at that time, I get an opportunity to remind them. I said, okay, you know what? Maybe that was not your fault. But did you not tell the parent? Yeah, but he's small. He's only 5. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to tell the other parents about wajib and haram. I said, do you realize in Islam, the responsibility of the wali, of the parent or the guardian, is not to make that child do good deeds, but to refrain that child from doing haram. So if they are going somewhere where they might have the possibility of committing something haram, even though the Sharia is not applicable on them, it is still wajib on the parent or the wali to make sure that they don't do haram. That is the responsibility of the wali, to prevent them from doing haram, from the forbidden. Don't worry about the good deeds, but make sure they don't do bad deeds, haram deeds, forbidden. Even though the Sharia doesn't apply on them. The wajibat of the wali is to make sure they refrain from haram. So this is one of the things that becomes very clear. And again, in the same compilation, he mentions if somebody owes anybody anything, if somebody has got a debt, it is better to fulfill that debt Return that debt. Then to recite, he mentions X number of salat, 70 rakats of salat. It's better to repay if you have the ability. Repay that amount before you even go to the masjid. Before you even go to pray or do your prayers. If you're able to pay off whatever you have borrowed from somebody or something you've taken, return that before you go even for your prayers. So imagine the implication there is, I owe somebody money, I have the money, I'm supposed to pay him back. Haji Ahmad, I borrowed, $50 yesterday because I told him, I said I needed it really urgently. I wanted to have an exotic dinner or a dessert. Please don't, I'm actually very full. Okay? And so I borrowed that, and today I have that money, I went to the bank, I took it out. But if I give it to him first, my salat dhuhrain will be delayed. What does the Sharia tell me? Go return his money to him. Return his money. You can pray or do your salah a few minutes later, or you might miss the awwal time or the fadila time, but that is better. And that is the reference I've given you so that I'm not telling you something from my side. It is the book of Shaykh Dastagib that mentions that. That returning that dirham, returning that dinar or dollar in today's terminology is better than performing that good deed. Salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Muhammad wa Ali. So the Sharia gives us a very clear indication that Islam is the rejection of batil before the acceptance of haqq. When you reject the batil, the haqq will automatically come in. And rejecting the batil means whatever is batil, whatever is the falsehood, rejected. A man comes to Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, and he says, Yabna Rasulullah, Yabna Rasulullah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You are cursing, Masalan, Banu Umayyah, you see Ziyarat Ashura, you've got, the cursing, the removal of Allah's rahmah from all these groups of people, one of which is Banu Umayyah. The man says to Imam Baqir, but there were some good people in Banu Umayyah. And he gives the example of whom? Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who was the Khalifa at the time of the fifth Imam, he returned Fadak. He stopped the cursing of Amir al-Mu'mineen from the mimbars. He changed a lot of things around that had been done in the time of the previous Khulafa. He changed all that. So the man is asking Imam Baqir that when you mention that, you're also cursing him, although he was a decent guy, he was an okay guy. Imagine the Imam's response. The Imam says, yes, he was good. And whatever Allah's, ajr, Allah's reward will be for him as well. But he said the problem or the issue is, doing good is in itself not enough. He did not disassociate himself with those who were before him. He did not disassociate himself. He did not distance himself from those who are before him. Salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. A man goes to Imam Sadiq and says, Yabna Rasulullah, in the time of Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, when the whole world was flooded, or the known world at the time, was flooded, and everybody was killed except for the 72 or the people who were on the Safina with Hazrat Nuh. The man is asking the Imam, were they all sinners? Were they all evil? Were they all bad? Who drowned? The Imam says no. He says there were some good people in them. The Imam says yes. So well, why did they drown as well? The Imam's answer is a very important lesson and an eye-awakening, opening opportunity for us. The Imam says, yes, there was many good people in there. There were many good people there. But the problem was that those good people did not stop the bad people from doing bad. Today, how many opportunities do we miss helping somebody, correcting somebody, helping ourselves, correcting ourselves? Or allowing somebody to correct us. You see, it is easy for us to do good deeds ourselves, and we want to be individualistic. Islam is not an individualistic religion or a faith or a way of life. It is a communal way of life. And that is why the institution of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi anil Munkar is there, whereby we encourage each other to do good and encourage each other to refrain from evil. Not just I leave it alone. Not only I do good deeds, and not only I refrain from haram, but we encourage each other to do good deeds, and each other be refrained from haram, from the forbidden. That is one of the reasons why Amr bil Ma'ruf is known as Ummul Ibadah. Ummul ibadah, the mother of all ibadah. You know how a mother takes care of all the children, the household, all of the things are looked after by the mother? That is the role of Amr bil Maruf. It helps us safeguard all of our actions and our deeds. A very beautiful example was given by a teacher of mine, Marhum Ayatollah Akhtar Radawi, the father of the Maulana, who's the resident alim of the Jaffrey Center in Toronto. His father was a great scholar, great alim who had reached ijtihad. He mentions a story when he's explaining Amr bil Maruf. It is that a group of 8 or 10 people got together and they bought a little canoe, they bought a little boat. They bought a little boat and they're going in the ocean, they're going into the river or wherever. Now he's saying that, for example, let's say that my share, 10 of us got together, we all went and for a boat ride now all of a sudden I take a chisel or something, and on my part where I'm sitting, I start making a hole. The other 9 people are trying to stop me. Shafeeq, what are you doing, Baba? Mahada, chikarmi koni, kya kar rahe ho? What's going on, man? I said, hey, we all got together. 1/10 of the boat is mine. I'm making a hole in my 1/10. Why are you worried? Mind your own business. They say MYOB, right? You know MYOB. Mind your own business. The reason why Islam rejects that is because now if I make a hole in my part of the boat, all 9 other people will also drown. Not just me. So Islam is reminding us that if there's a bad apple or a bad fruit in that basket, eventually the entire basket will become bad. You need to either take care of that, correct it, remove the evil, remove the spoiling part, or basically throw that fruit away. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Islam reminds us to open our minds to see what the reality is. Not just accept tradition, not just to accept everything blindly, but to realize and do tadabbur and tafakkur as to what is the reality. There are certain things that are hidden in Islam that have been told and taught to us by the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We just want to look at what is open, what is zahir, what is in front of us. That's how we are. We are visual people. We can understand things when we see it. And that is why the young brother who recited the verses of the Holy Quran from the beginning, from the Surah Mubarakah, Baqarah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. A true muttaqi, somebody who is getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will believe in things that they cannot see. يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. I'm not even talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm talking about things around us on an ongoing, regular basis that are not zahir, that are not seen, that my eyes cannot visualize it. Haj Ahmed, do you have internet here, Wi-Fi here in Masjid Imam Ali? I'm not asking you for the password, don't get scared. No, I don't even have my phone with me, so I try not to. You have Wi-Fi. Imagine my first day or second day I came here, and I say, Haj, what's this Wi-Fi? I don't believe in it. It's all nonsense, it's all hogwash. Because I can't see it. So I don't believe in it. You'll think that, Brother Shafeeq, you better stay home for a day or so, just recover. Because Wi-Fi is everywhere, these signals are everywhere. You go to certain countries in Europe, the whole country is Wi-Fi'd. I don't know if that's a real word or not. It's basically the whole country in some parts of Europe are basically electromagnetized. I said, what does that mean? They said there are rays and there are waves everywhere. Just because you don't believe in it, Mr. Shafeeq, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. This is what I tell atheists all the time. Whether you believe in God or not, He is going to exist. Salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, please. A very famous alim, scholar in the history of Islam, his name was Bahlul. He used to pretend he was mad in the latter part of his life, and there was a reason for that as well. He used to pretend he was insane, he was crazy. But a lot of tabligh, a lot of propagation of Islam came in his time. One time, he was in the time of Harun Rashid, alayhi la'an, the Banu Abbasi Khalifa, Harun Rashid, the killer of our 7th Imam, and various other, many, countless Shias in his time were massacred. Okay. I want to move forward, but the Western world regards him as the Caliph of 1,001 nights. The Caliph of 1,001 Nights was the same Harun Rashid, who was the killer of thousands of Shias, and Imam Ma'asum, Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam. Anyways, Bahlul was in his time. One time he was sitting outside, not far from the palace of the king, and he was making these castles. And so Harun Rashid is walking by and he says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm making houses in Jannah." Harun looks at him. "You're making houses in Jannah? Are you selling them?" He says, "Yes, I'm selling them." He says, "How much?" He said, 1 dirham. How much? 1 dirham. Being the miser that he was, we talked about miser yesterday, right? In friendship. Being the miser he was, he said, "Why should I waste a dirham?" He goes home. Sometime later, his wife comes, and husband and wife, sometimes they talk. "So how was your day?" "Fine, how was your day?" Said, "Okay." She said, "Yeah, I saw Bahlul sitting there not too far." He goes, "Yeah, I saw him too." She says, I bought one of those houses. I gave him a dirham." He goes, "What? You wasted a dirham?" She goes, "Yeah, just to make him happy, just to humor him." Okay, they go to sleep. In the middle of the night, Harun sees a dream. He sees a beautiful palace, a beautiful castle in what would be regarded as paradise. He sees a beautiful place, and then somewhere at a distance, he sees a rundown old shack. And he asks the gatekeeper, he says, "Wow, what is this? Whose is this? It's so beautiful." He says, "Yeah, that's your wife's mahal, your wife's palace." So what? And I said, "What's that little dirt pile over there, that shack that's all run down, broken and everything?" He says, "That's yours." What? So what? How can that be? And this gatekeeper says that she just bought this in the afternoon. Allahu Akbar. She just bought it in the afternoon. Oh, okay. So the next day, he's finishing his work, whatever his zalim work was, or whatever his oppressive work was. He finishes all of that. He comes back, he sees Bahlul still sitting there, still making those palaces, castles, sand castles, whatever you want to call them. He says, "Bahlul, are you still making those houses in Jannah?" He goes, "Yes." "Are you still selling them?" Bahlul says, "Yes." So Harun takes out a dirham. He says, "What was the price again?" He says, "Half your kingdom." "Sorry? Half of your kingdom." He says, "Yesterday you told me it was 1 dirham. Today you want half of my kingdom? Are you mad? Are you crazy? What is it?" He says, "Yesterday you were going to buy it in good faith without seeing it. Now you've already seen the benefits." Salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Supply and demand, the price goes up when you... That's how supply and demand works, right? Economics, basic economics. You guys know it much better than I will. So this is where we find that the belief in the unseen and the real message of Islam, the essence of the message of Islam, is evident. And that was one of the reasons we see in the Anbiya that are mentioned in the Ziyarat of Aba Abdullah. There is a beautiful lesson in each and every one of them. When I was mentioning about Prophet Musa, that Allah Ta'ala asked him, "Do you know why I made you Nabi?" He says that Allah replies to him, "I chose you as a Nabi because of your humbleness and the fact that you put your face on the ground and you worship me like that." Nabi Musa was Kalimullah. One day he was walking, he had his asa, the cane, the staff. He was walking with the staff one day, and as he was walking with the staff, he hits a rock and the rock splits. He hits a rock. And in between that, inside that rock, was a small ant. A small ant. And that ant was being sustained by Allah in that rock. All of a sudden, Musa looks to the heavens and says, "Ya Allah, what is the purpose of that ant? What is the purpose of that ant? Why did you create that ant?" Imagine, this is Nabi Musa, Kalimullah. I'm not talking about an ordinary person. You and I saying that doesn't really matter. This is Nabi Musa. "Ya Allah, why did you create that ant?" Immediately, a retort from the heavens comes. He says, "Ya Musa, every day that ant is asking me, 'Ya Allah, why did you create Musa?'" Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We think we are something. He said, "That ant is asking me, 'Ya Allah, why did you create Musa? What is the purpose of Musa?'" Imagine for a moment who we think we are and what is our asliya? What is our reality? What is our haqiqah? Your haqiqah and my haqiqah becomes something when we strive for a higher purpose. When we give up these dunyavi worldly things and we strive for a higher purpose to understand the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to implement what Abu Abdullah taught us on the plains of Karbala, that is when our status increases. Today, how many people have come and gone? How many millions, if not billions, maybe even trillion, have come and gone? How many battles have been fought, won and lost? How many can we name? How many heroes can we remember? After 50 years, after 60 years, if I was to tell you about the war of 1812 that we had fought against our neighbors to the south, maybe you might remember one or two generals or one or two commanders that fought and were the cause of Canada's victory, or at least British victory, because at that time we weren't a real country. And I'm not saying this in support of the British colonization. I'm saying that as just a topic of reality that we are taught in the schools, that today in our minds may be there or may not be there. By no means am I a supporter of any empires, policies, protocols, or colonizations. In fact, those of you who know me will know that every lecture I give, my cursing and condemnation is for them. Because we are living in a time where we can see and understand more than ever before in our history. 1.4 billion Muslims. We could be a superpower. We could be a global economic power. We could be at the time of the greatness that we had once upon a time. Those who followed the true message of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, we could have been an example to the entire world. 1.4 billion Muslims is greater than any country's population, and yet that 1.4 billion Muslims cannot take a glass of water into Gaza. A shame for the Muslim Ummah. This is what happens when you leave Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. This is what happens when you leave the message of Abu Abdullah. When you miss the message of Karbala, this is what happens. You can't name me any generals. You cannot name me any heroes. You cannot name me any people that we can look up to, whose lives are exemplary. But when we look at the page of Karbala, when we look at the episode of Karbala, in those 9 days, from the 2nd of Muharram to the 11th of Muharram, we see examples and those individuals whose emulation, not even 1400 years later, but till the end of time, will remain as a light, as a shining light for the entire world, not just the Ummah. The name of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas created fear in the hearts of the enemies of Abu Abdullah. And they knew who was Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Somebody who could shake, and that is why if you look at the true message, look at how the enemies lived their lives. Yesterday we were remembering Muslim ibn Aqil, and I mentioned to you that every few hours the commander would go to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad alayhi la'an and say, send us more troops, send us more armies, send us more contingents, send us more soldiers. My question, which none of you might have thought about, and usually I have youth discussions afterwards, I thought somebody might ask me that why was Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad in his tower, in his palace, when there was a major war battle going on in his city? Why was he in his palace? If you look at a war happening right outside you, right outside in your city, if something was to be happening in Ottawa, the mayor would be out there. The premier might even come. The prime minister might even make a presence known. Because something very phenomenal is happening. He was in his palace. If you open the pages of Karbala, what do you find? Except for firing the arrow that killed Abdullah ibn al-Hussein al-Asghar, except for firing the arrow that shot the water bag of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, when did Hurmala come out into the battlefield? except to kill Abu Abdullah. When was Shimr ever into the battlefield? They were all hiding out in their tents, in their bunkers. They were hiding out. You didn't understand what I'm saying. The Dhalimeen, the oppressors, have a policy. Till today you will see that policy. You will see the Zionists, when a war comes, they'll go into their bunkers 70 feet down. They will not be able to face what their people are going through. They will go into their bunkers. They will go into their hiding places. Whether it's the President of the United States or the Prime Minister of Great Britain, they will not be out under the war front. But if you look at Karbala, Karbala taught us that a true mu'min, a true Muslim who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the message of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, they will be on the front and they will be ready to lay down their lives for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not hiding in bunkers. Abu Abdullah could have kept Hassan and Hussein. Abu Abdullah could have kept Ali Akbar and Ali Asghar. Could have kept Qasim and Umar. These are my family members. They cannot be slaughtered. They cannot be killed. Because if you look at the world's politicians, whether it is the American president during the Iraq war or any of these incursions that they did, their kids were in the battle, they were soldiers who were in the army. But no, not in the front fronts, not in the war fronts, not in the front lines. The Queen's son and grandson were also in the army of the British, never in the forefront. That's why in this last generation and a half, you don't have one person from any important political leader in the Western world killed in battle. Open the history. I'm not just saying it for myself, I'm telling you from a statistical point of view. Not one. Because they keep their people in the back. They keep them in the backgrounds. They keep them in the bunkers and in the tents. The same way Shimr, Hurmala, Khuli and that gang was as well. Whereas in Islam, we look at how our ulama, following the example of Abu Abdullah, are in the forefront. Their children are there to lay down their lives. And you will see, many of their children have been killed. The children of Imam Khomeini, the children of Ayatollah Gulpegani. Rahbar himself is paralyzed because of a bomb blast. You will see that they will give their lives before they tell you to give your children in the way. They will give their lives and their families for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before telling the ummah to give their lives. Imam Hussein started that and set that example. It was repeatedly on the plains of Karbala that Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas would ask him for permission. Ya Mawla, oh my master, everybody is going and laying down their lives. Give me permission. Imam would say no. Imam would say no. Imam would say no. Every time Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas would come and ask, the Imam said no. Finally, when all of them were shaheed, all of them were martyred, finally then Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas comes to the Imam. And the Imam says, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, you are the commander of my army. You are the flag bearer, you are the standard bearer of the army of Hussein on the plains of Karbala. I cannot let you go. Imam Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas replies, Mawla, oh my master, the army that I was the alam bearer for, the standard bearer for, the army of which I am the commander, that army has been martyred on the plains of Karbala. At least let me go on the battlefield as well, so that I can also be shaheed, I can also be martyred. Imam again refuses. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas doesn't want to argue with Mawla. He knows that Imam will make the decision as is necessary. In the meantime, when he comes back to his tent, he hears the crying of the young children. My dear mourners, those of you who are remembering Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas on the plains of Karbala, don't think for a moment that the hunger and thirst was only while the family of the Prophet was in Karbala. Hunger and thirst was even after the events of Karbala. Hunger and thirst was also there on the way from Karbala to Kufa, on the way from Kufa to Sham. Hunger was always there. But we find that not one child after the day of Ashura, not one child ever said, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, that I am thirsty. All the children knew after the martyrdom of Abul Fadl Abbas, whatever little hope we might have had to get water, even those hopes have been shattered. Abu Fadl Abbas hears the cries and the lamentations of the children of Al-Atash. Al-Atash, we are thirsty. We are thirsty, we are thirsty. He takes the water bag from Hazrat Ruqayya, from Sakina bint al-Hussein, and he says, he comes back to Mawla. He says, Mawla, oh my master, I know you have prohibited me from fighting. Can I at least go to the Furat? And can I please at least go bring water for the children? For the cries of the children are unbearable for Abul Fadl Abbas. Abbas is telling his master, his Mawla, that Abbas cannot tolerate the cries of these children. Finally, Imam, with a very heavy heart, says to Abul Fadl Abbas, I know what will happen, I know the results. Go, my brother, go onto the battlefield, go bring water. The Imam just gives it. The Imam just gives him permission to go bring water. He takes the alam, he takes the flag in one hand, and he's taking the water bag of Hazrat Sakina, of Ruqayya, and he's going onto the battlefield. Remember what I told you, even though it was a difficult day, even though every member of Mawla's family and friends have been martyred, all the male members have been slaughtered, even then, when Abul Fadl Abbas goes to the battlefield, the enemies who are cowards are running from one direction to the other, and they basically almost made a way for Abul Fadl Abbas to reach the Furat, to the river. The historians have written it was like a knife cutting through soft butter to reach the Furat that Abul Fadl Abbas reaches. When he reaches the Furat, he reaches the river, he fills the water bag of Hazrat Ruqayya, he fills his niece's water bag, and then he takes a little bit of water in his hand just to quench the severe thirst that he was facing. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Our salutations on the sabr, on the patience of Abul Fadl Abbas. When he takes the water in his hand, he is thinking whether he should drink it or not. In the water, he sees the reflection. He sees his reflection. But my dear sisters and brothers, my youngsters, my elders, he does not see his own reflection. He sees Ruqayya. He sees the children of Abu Abdullah. He takes the water and throws it back. Our salams, Abul Fadl Abbas. He throws the water back. He takes the water back. He takes the flag, the alam. He is now ready to come back. By this time, Ibn Umar Saad has told them, we must not allow Abul Fadl Abbas to return to the tents. If Hussein and the family of Hussein gets water, they will have more strength. Allahumma la'an qatal al-Hussein. May Allah curse the killers of Abu Abdullah and Abul Fadl Abbas. As Mawla Abul Fadl Abbas is coming back, one of the mal'oon, one of the accursed soldiers is hiding behind a tree. As Abul Fadl Abbas is coming, he severs one arm of the Mawla. Abul Fadl protects the alam and the mashk, the water bag of Ruqayya. With one hand he's holding it. The blood is gushing out. I'm not sure how. I can send salutations to my Mawla Abbas. As he is coming back, another mal'oon is in another area, hidden behind another tree. And what does he do? He severs the remaining arm of Abul Fadl Abbas. Somebody is throwing a spear. The spear hits the eye of the Imam. Hurmala fires an arrow, and the water bag of Ruqayya breaks. The water gushes. The water gushes out. Abul Fadl Abbas is now disheartened. History tells us, the books of Maqtal mention that when the water bag burst, Abul Fadl Abbas, who was coming towards the Khayyam, towards the tents, changed his direction and went back towards. He is going back towards the battlefield. He is no longer coming towards the tents of Abu Abdullah. My dear mourners, when Abul Fadl, when this is all transpiring, what does Ruqayya, what do the children see? Initially when Ruqayya bint al-Husayn is seeing the alam returning back because they could not see. She was too small to see Abul Fadl Abbas. Only she could see was the alam. All she could see was the standard coming back. She's telling all the kids, don't worry, I won't drink any water. I'll make sure all of your thirst is quenched. I will not drink anything. I will feed you first. My salams on Ruqayya. Allahu Akbar. All of a sudden she sees that the flag is gone. It is no longer there. Immediately she goes to her Baba. She goes to Mawla. He says, Baba, call my uncle Abbas. We don't want water anymore. In the meantime, Mawla goes towards the battlefield, towards where Abul Fadl Abbas has fallen. The spear has injured his eye. His arms have been severed. May Allah not show any brother this scene for another brother. Abu Abdullah says, Abbas, what have they done to you? What have they done to you? Abul Fadl Abbas says, Mawla, I have some requests. Mawla, can you please not take my body back to the tent? I don't want Ruqayya to be disheartened. I promised her water, and I could not bring her the water. I could not bring her the water. Mawla, there's a spear in my eye. There's a spear in my eye. When I was born, I first said salam to you. You were the first person I looked at. Mawla, please remove the spear. Please wipe the blood from my other eye. Mawla, so that I can see you one last time before I leave this world. Mawla, I would not have troubled you. I would not have bothered you. But I'm so sorry. My arms. Mawla. At that time, what does Imam Hussain say? Ya Abul Fadl Abbas, Ya Abbas, I also have a request. I will do everything you have asked me. All your life, you have called me Mawla. You have called me your master. Today, I want you to call me your brother. Abul Fadl Abbas says, my mother had told me, you are our master, our Mawla. I cannot call you brother. At that time, the Imam insists, hey, you call me brother. Finally, just before he leaves this world, Abul Fadl Abbas, because this was the order of the Imam, says, Ya akhi, and then he leaves this dunya. Imam Hussain says, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Hussein's back has been broken on the plains of Karbala. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. One Surah Fatiha preceded by a salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad for the Fadl Abbas. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Brothers and sisters, just an announcement. On Saturday at 6 p.m., as opposed to 6:30, 6 p.m. we will be beginning the English lecture and Majlis. And on Saturday we will recount the events of the Ashir of Karbala. And the following day, Sunday morning, it will be the Arabic lecture and Majlis for the Ashir. One more time, Saturday at 6 p.m. We will be doing the Ashir in the English lecture and Majlis. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Further, we'll be taking a 5-minute break, followed by the Arabic lecture and Majlis. Thank you.